Hello, a few weeks ago I did a video on how you can install Windows 10 on your Chromebook. This video is about if you have already installed Windows 10 on your Chromebook and you may have come across some issues after the installation. This is what this video is for. I'm going to go through some of the issues that you may have come across and other things you can do once you've got Windows installed on your Chromebook. So the first thing I'm going to say is when I installed Windows 10 and the video, you can watch the video and I'll try and put a link there like that. If it doesn't work, then just go to my channel and you'll see a video on how to install Windows 10 on your Chromebook. So if you're going to watch that video, when it gets to the window, you don't need to download a different ISO. You can use exactly the same ISO. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you will when you watch that video. You can use the same ISO. It doesn't take up any further storage. Just where on the video I use the drop down and use Windows 10 Home, I would instead install Windows 10 Pro. And the reason for that is when I tried to install an old program, so maybe when you're trying to install old programs on Windows, because of the Windows virus protection, it thinks there might be a virus even on programs that isn't. And I've looked online and this is a well-known thing. And it says, it comes up with a red box saying you don't have permissions, you need to be administrator, but you are already administrator, so you need to install a local administrator, which is easily done. But the problem is when I installed a local administrator, it then needs to set that user up, and I just could not get past this problem. And it was a Windows issue. The administrator was set up. Annoyingly, I could log in and see it, but as soon as I did that, it jumped back into this setting up. It was just a bug I couldn't get round, and I tried it a few times and I just could not get it to work. So I gave up on trying to set up an administrator using that method. But obviously I had the issue of I still want to be able to install some old programs where this error message comes up. So I thought, well, I'll just install some policies on my current user. And that's when I realized you can't do that with Windows 10 Home. To install policies, you need Windows 10 Pro. Like I said, I'm not going to go into it in this video, but if you are going to watch that video, I would install Windows 10 Pro instead of Windows 10 Home. And I will put a message on that video so people hopefully do that if they're going to watch the video. Because like me, it did mean after going through all of that installing Windows 10 Home, when I couldn't get it to work, I had to uninstall it and then install Windows 10 Pro, which isn't bad. Second time around doesn't take that long. It's just the actual installing part, which takes quite a lot of time. So in this video, what I wanted to do was to show you some of the issues you may have once you've installed Windows 10 on your Chromebook. And the first one is that when you've installed it, obviously I've just opened up ChromeOS, we're in ChromeOS, and the Windows installed on the virtual machine here, KVM, the virtual machine, and you can see there it's Windows 10 shut to off. Now, if I try to run that, because this is how you'd open it each day, you get this error message, or you might do, but I think you most likely will do. Error starting domain, requested operation is not valid, network default is not active. And this is a message I get every time. So this is something you have to do every time, but it's not a long-winded process. Once you've done it a couple of times, it works fine. So we need to fix this problem. So it's pretty easily done. So all you need to do to fix that problem is, so if you put in sudo and then space virsh space net hyphen list space and then hyphen two hyphens and then all ALL and hit return. And as you can see there, look, inactive. This is the problem. That's what that error message is saying. This is inactive. So you need to set it to active. So to set it to active, you just simply type in sudo and then space virsh space and then net hyphen start and then space and then default. And that's it, it's done. And then if you run this first command again, you don't need to run that first command and you don't need to run the command I'm just about to do. Essentially, the only command you really have to do once you get used to it is this sudo virsh net hyphen sudo space virsh space net hyphen start space default. The only reason I'm running these commands is just to show you that what it does. And then if we run the first command again, you should see that it's gone from inactive to active. So there, as you can see there, state inactive, here, state active. So that's fixed that problem. So when you go to log in, it won't have that problem. And you just need to do that every time you're going to use Windows. Okay, so some other things you might want to do. So you've installed Windows. I think on that video I said to use 30 gigabyte of your storage, which is fine. I think Windows takes about 22 gigabyte to install. One thing you might want to do, you might want to start installing programs like I've done on my Windows virtual machine, and you might want to install the disk size. Now, when it comes to disk size, there's two things you need to consider. The main disk size is your Linux disk size. So it's when you set up Linux, for example, I think for mine, I've set it to 100 gigabytes. So I've set my Linux drive to 100 gigabytes. So I can never obviously increase my Windows size higher than that because it's all within that container of the actual disk. So, but what you could do, I set it to 30 gigabyte. You might want to increase it to 40 gigabyte for the Windows setup. So to do that, what I'll do first, I'll open up KVM just to show you some things on here. So let's open up the virtual machine again. Okay, so from here, if you click on, we're not going to open it yet, just leave it closed. You don't want to open it because you wouldn't want to run these commands whilst it's running. These commands you'd want to do whilst it's not running. Okay, if we go to, if you click on the virtual machine, there you can see Win10 shut to off, and then click up here and click on, why is this not showing what it did a second ago? There we go. So click on it and then go to edit, and then you've got connection details and virtual machine details. Click on virtual machine details, and then that comes up like this. And then go up here to view, and it's shown as console. Just click it onto details, and this shows you the details of the virtual machine that you've set up. You can see it's shut off here. And if we meet Microsoft Windows 10 performance, it's not being used, so it's all off. CPUs, this is what I set when you installed it. As you can see on my Chromebook, I had 8. I think on the video I gave it 4. I actually increased that to 6, and it did slightly improve the performance. So bear in mind, you've got to leave some for ChromeOS as well, so don't use the whole 8. I wouldn't if I was you. And then memory here, you can see I've put 4 megabytes, but I could do a max of 6 because I've got 8 gigabyte on here. So you can increase memory here. But the reason why I'm showing you this is if we look at the disk, that's this one here, you can see the storage size is 60 gigabyte, and that's for my Windows setup. So my Linux is 100 gigabyte, with inside that 60 gigabyte is reserved for my Windows setup, which is fine, but it was originally 30 gigabyte, but then I wanted to install some programs, so I had to increase the size. So if you wanted to do that, this is what you would do. Okay, so let's just minimize that. Type in sudo space VIRS space list space hyphen hyphen and then all. And then that will show you a list of your virtual machines. I've only got 1, and the name is Win10, so that's pretty decent. But that's how you look for the name. That's where you look for the name. And then what you need to do, you need to find where that's located. So to find where that is located, you type in sudo space VIRS space DOMB LKLIST, and then space, and then you need to put in the name. So that's this here. So Win10. So type Win10, hit return, and then it will give you where it's located. Ignore this one here. This is the Windows ISO download. Ignore that. It's this one here. That's where it's located. Now you know where it's located, you can then increase the size or decrease the size. So we go into decrease, so bear in mind we're 60. We're going to decrease this by 10 gigabytes. So to decrease the size, you do sudo space QEMU -img space resize space hyphen hyphen and then shrink and then the location. So the location is / well, for yours it might be different. I'm just showing you mine. You'll know yours because it will be whatever it is showing here. Okay, and then hyphen lib vert and then images and then win10 and then dot qcow2 and then press space. Here you simply put a minus and I'm going to shrink it by 10, so just put 10 and then G and then hit return and you can see image resized. So I don't know if it will update on here straight away, but we'll have a quick look. So if we look on here, it may not, you might have to shut it down. It's showing 60, but if we close that and close that, it has done it anyway, even if this doesn't show it, but it should do hopefully. So if we go back in here, click on there, go to edit, virtual machine details, and then view details, and then go to your SATA disk 1. You can see there it's now gone to 50 gigabytes. So you can see that it has decreased it to 50 gigabytes. So that's how you decrease it. So now what I'm going to do, obviously I want to put it back to what it was, 60 gigabytes. So to increase the size, you use all these commands again to get the name and your location. To increase the size, you just simply sudo space QEMU hyphen IMG space resize space and then the location. So VAR for me, obviously use the location for your particular install. For images, win10.qcow. Oh, have I done that right? 2, I think so. We'll soon find out. And instead of a minus, this I'm going to do a plus and then 10G and hit return. And there we go, image resize. So that should have put it all back to the 60 gigabyte. Now, don't worry about, oh, I'm not having to do this all the time. You won't have to do this often. It's just whenever you need to increase or decrease the size for whatever reason. So the only thing you do have to do at the beginning, or you might have to do if you have that error message, is the one I just showed you at the beginning, and that one it's about setting it active on the network, and you'll see that error message we had at the beginning. That won't be a problem now when we try to log in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out of here. And then we'll open up the Windows machine, and then I'm going to show you some things inside the Windows virtual machine as well. So if we open this up, open that up, if we quickly check just to show you virtual machine details, view, this should now be shown as 60 gigabyte. There you go, 60 gigabyte. And there's loads of things here. You can have a mess with if you want. I've not looked into it too much. So from here, this is where your virtual machines are. So to run it, you can simply click just play, and there we go, it's running. And then just wait for that. So it's running, but you need to go to C. So on here, we was on virtual machine details. Just go to connection details, I believe. No, sometimes it's a bit of a faff to open it. So let me see what I need to do. No. See, I'm still getting used to how it works. So it is running, it's just about showing the screen now. Oh my. So I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. View, it's not a graph. Right. You can see it running in the background. Just why can't I see it? Console, maybe view console. There we go. So that was a bit of a faff, but in a way I'm glad I showed you that, because it shows you that I still don't 100% know what I'm doing, but that's all you had to do. So from there, it was just from here. It's because we've done all the different views to show you the image size, which I don't normally do, so I don't normally have that problem. Just click on it like that. Can't even remember, I didn't know. Right click on it, click open, and there we go. And from here, if it was on details, you just need to click it back to console like that. And here you can see Windows is here. Full screen it, just click on this here, switch to full screen. And there we go. There we've got Windows in the background. Just click on there and then put in your details, what you set up when you set up Windows. And it will just log in. Okay, so here it is logged in. Pretty quick. Obviously with Windows, if you used Windows before, you know it does take a couple of minutes for Windows to catch up on itself when you've turned it on. So I would always recommend just giving it a couple of minutes to chill itself out and get to where it needs to be. So one thing I am going to show you is just a few things really on what you want to do in here. In my previous video, I did show you how to set your resolution. So if you watch that video, you should have it like this. But if you've got it where it's not using up your full screen, it's just simply because you need to set the resolution with inside Windows. So if you do right click, and I think under display settings, you set your resolution. Yeah, and as you can see here, I put it to full HD because my Chromebook's full HD, but whatever yours is. So that's how you need to do it if you haven't got it shown as a full screen like this. Okay, so one thing you would want to possibly do is to go back to that KVM. Okay, so, or shrink this so it's not using full screen. If you just go up to the top and hover around, doesn't always show, but if you hold down Control and then Alt, so this is, there we go, there. Okay, so that's what you need to do. If you click on there, that leaves full screen. So then you might want to do that if you want to look at things with inside here. It still keeps it running, it's still running in the background, but you can see, you can then have a look at the different details here. And from here as well, you can, if you want to, simply click that and it will shut down your virtual machine. Okay, you can do that. But what I've done mainly, if I'm being honest with you, is just use it as if it's Windows. So I would go down here and do the shutdown as you normally would with inside Windows. And then sometimes, like not this occasion, it's just shut down. The reason I do that is because obviously sometimes there's going to be updates and it will do an update. So I would just use Windows as if it's Windows once it's up and running. Now, a few other things you might want to know about. One thing, and I think this is possibly to do with security. I'm not 100% sure. I've not really looked into it why. But if you browse with inside Windows, it's painfully slow. However, I'm sure you haven't installed Windows on your Chromebook to use the internet. If you have, that doesn't really make much sense. So I would suggest try and avoid using the internet in Windows, unless you have to. For example, if you want to install a program and you want an exe file from the internet, then it's best to do it inside Windows, because anything you download will come into Windows. So what I would do instead, I would browse inside Chrome. So if you just go down to the bottom like that, and then you can see your Chrome desktop, just open up Chrome and browse with inside Chrome. It's much quicker than doing it with inside Windows. And then simply you could just minimize that and leave it open and then go back to your Windows, and then it's there when it's there. You can still use Chrome OS as you want to. It's absolutely fine. And then Windows will just be here as well. I'm trying to think of other things you might want to know. Installing programs. Okay, so this is and this is a little project I'm working on at the moment. I wanted to try and get The Sims 2 installed on Windows because I love The Sims 2 and it's so hard to get playing on computers today because they're quite modern. This is quite an old game, but it's still great. So I didn't have The Sims 2, and bearing in mind this method, what I'm talking about now, you would need to have a PC because you'd need to make the disk is in my PC, you'd need to make an ISO image of that disk. But if you have got, and I just bought this off eBay for a few pounds, but if you've already got it, or you'd need to create an ISO, just look on Google how to create an ISO inside Windows. If you've got something like that and you've got an ISO you want to install, how you would do that is if you go back up here, so you can go back. If you go up here, nothing's there, it's usually just Control Alt and just hang around and it comes up. Yeah, it's not always perfect at the top there, you just have to hang around a bit. But if you leave full screen, if for example you did want to install an ISO, the way you do it, you put an ISO onto a USB stick, and then from here, if I remember correctly, you've got the virtual machine and it's redirect USB device. You click on that, you click on the ISO within that device, and then it's showing within inside Windows. So that's how you do that. I'm not going to do that now because I haven't got one to show you, but that's how you can do that if you want to install an ISO image on a USB stick. So I'll just put this back to full screen. I don't think I've got the option. Full screen. There we go. Okay, so that's that. Now obviously also you can just install programs. I installed Excel, so I did a video a couple of weeks ago about Microsoft 365 now on the Chromebook. It's great, and it is great, and that's using a PWA app directly from ChromeOS, and it works perfectly fine. But there may be reasons why you want to install the full version of Excel. So that's what I did with inside Windows as well, and I'll just quickly show you. Runs perfectly fine once it's up and running. And this is just a full version of Excel. So that's the reason really why you might want to install Windows. You might want to try and experiment installing some games or installing programs off the internet, or I've installed Excel as well, and this is the full version of Excel, which is great. So I hope you like that video. I think I've covered everything I've come up against whilst using it. As I said, I would generally install Pro rather than Home because you don't want to have any issues with, like this for example. If you try to install this, one of the first things you'll have is that permissions issue. The way around that is to use Windows 10 Pro. I'm not going to go into any more detail on that at the moment because I've still not got that to work. So once I have, if I'm able to, I'll do a separate video. But I hope you like this video. As I said, it's good. You do need a pretty powerful Chromebook to do this. An Intel i5, at least 11th generation, 8 gig of RAM. You need a lot of storage, and ideally it needs to support KVM because it makes it much more quick as well. But once it's up and running, it's great. Obviously I wouldn't try and install Steam and then install games because you're asking quite a lot then, because you've got to bear in mind you've got ChromeOS running, you've got Windows running. It's great for installing things like Excel and stuff like that, but I wouldn't try and install games because it's just not really going to work. If you want to do that, just use Linux Beta, Steam Linux Beta directly from ChromeOS. But what I like is it's there, it looks nice, it works all okay, you've got full control, works just like Windows would in general. But yeah, it's good, and it's just nice if I want to use full packages, and there are some instances where I would want to use full packages, and it's good that ChromeOS is just in the background like that. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, please like below and subscribe to the channel for future videos, and thanks for watching.